Ken Horst here, your weight loss wingman. In this video, I'm going to talk about the truth about carbs and how to lose weight and keep it off. And I'm going to do this by sharing a chart that I discovered 13 years ago when I started my weight loss journey. And it was really very enlightening to me, and it helped me really understand what I needed to do to lose weight and keep it off. And I've kept it off for 13 years and counting. And I think if you follow the information that I'm going to share with you now, you'll be able to duplicate my results, which is having lost 45 pounds and kept it off for 13 years. So here's the chart that I discovered 13 years ago. I was initially looking for a way to lose weight and discovered a book by Mark Sisson called Primal Blueprint. And Primal Blueprint really taught me how to live a different way and how to eat a different way. But it was simple and easy to understand. And the one thing that really stuck out with me with that book is he talked about the fact that if a person simply followed his advice 80% of the time, you would get results, which means I could fail 20% of the time, which is 1 out of every 5 days. Now, in weight loss, as well as other goals, when people fail, we tend to get upset about that. It could set us back mentally and emotionally, as well as physically, if the goal is a physical goal like losing weight. But when Mark Sisson said that if you simply do things right 80% of the time, you'll be successful, that took a load off my shoulders, if you will. It made me realize that I don't have to be perfect to lose weight and keep it off. And you don't either. And so hopefully that simple advice from Mark that I'm sharing with you, which is just get this right 80% of the time and you'll be successful, will help lighten the mental load for you as you strive to lose weight and keep it off. So in that book and through my readings with Mark, I discovered this chart right here, and it's called the Primal Blueprint Carbohydrate Curve. And basically what it shows you is carbs per day, depending upon how many carbs per day you eat, and it's got this on the vertical axis over here, you will get a result, which is on the horizontal axis, okay? And let's start at the very top, starting with 300 to 300 plus calories. That's the danger zone. You will be obese and you will have physical illness from that for sure. And then, going down, if someone is eating between 150 and 300 grams of carbohydrates a day, you may very well experience insidious weight gain. And many people are living in this 150 to 300 range, I learned. It's also called SAD, which stands for the Standard American Diet. Now below that, we've got 100 to 150 grams of carbs. And this is referred to as effortless weight maintenance. And this from here is just maintaining body composition. So when you get to your weight goal and you want to simply maintain it, the rule of thumb here is to maintain between 100 and 150 grams of carbohydrates per day, as well as many other things, of course, like moving and whatnot. But bottom line is you really don't want to consume more carbs than 100 to 150. Now for weight loss, it says on this chart, if I can keep my grams of carbs per day between 50 and 100, that's what was referred to here as the weight loss sweet spot. And that's where I'm starting to actually burn fat for energy, which is, the ultimate goal, which leads us to the last category here, which is 0 to 50. And 0 to 50 grams of carbs today could lead to what's called ketosis. I didn't know what ketosis was 13 years ago. And when I read this, I had an aha moment because it occurred to me that I could, by altering my diet, train my body to burn fat for energy instead of, carbs for energy or whatnot. And so by using fat for energy, not only would I be losing weight, but more importantly, I would be losing fat. The idea that I could train my body to burn the fat off my body was new to me, and it was incredible idea that I thought, why didn't somebody teach me this, 20 years ago? It was, arguably the best information I ever had for weight loss. So in the next few slides, I'm going to share with you what the diet looks like in each of these zones. And I'm going to share with you a couple of pictures of myself from when I started my diet back in 2012, January of 2012, all the way through today, and where I live on this chart today. And I think by giving you some personal examples, you'll understand how this could very well work for you as well. So let's get into the next slide. Again, this is the slide I just showed you. Now, I want to show you what I looked like in January 2012 when I started, when I discovered this, if you will. And here's me at my highest weight ever. I was about 211 pounds. I discovered this in January of 2012. And the question I had for myself is how did I get here? What did I do? And really, I'll show you in the next slide. What I did is literally at this time in my life, I was living in the danger zone. My carbs were close to 300 and 300 plus. And I'll show you the different things I was eating and whatnot. But from this chart and understanding this relationship with carbs, it's very clear to me what I did to myself and how I did it, and it'll be very clear to you as well. But also then from the rest of this chart, I will explain to you how I started to lower my carbs, manage my carbs, and actually lost the 45 pounds and have kept it off for 13 years and counting. So let's look at the danger zone. What does it look like when somebody lives there and eats there, if you will? So the danger zone is obviously very high in carbs and processed foods. And some of the common foods that people consume when they are living in this zone, and by the way, you'll be able to see these people out in public, okay? These are the people that are obese. These are the people that you do a double take in the store and say, wow, that's a big person. How did they get so big? Well, here's the recipe for getting gigantic if you want to become super big. It starts out, well, things like soda, sweetened coffee, like the drinks you get at Starbucks for $7, $8 a day, energy drinks, which tend to be a big lie. For me, candy, cookies, donuts, and pastries. Those are items that I crave. I have a crazy addiction to sugar, and I will always probably have that addiction. So, unfortunately, a part of my success is related to self-discipline and self-control, which is something that we all have to develop if we're going to really try to take care of our health. We were eating pasta, bread, and rice with, most meals. Every meal in my house included, a protein, meat of some sort, a vegetable, and then a starch like potatoes, pasta, or rice. Pizza, fast food combos. At my house, we were eating pizza every Friday night. Friday night was pizza night. And at the time, I had two kids who were not that old. They were younger. And so we would get sometimes this large, gigantic cowboy pizza, which was 5 meats. And my family, my wife and kids, would only eat maybe half of it, which was still quite a bit. And I would eat the other half, which was way more calories than anybody should be eating in a day. And it was all from pizza, which isn't generally the best food to eat. Ice cream is another thing that stuck with me back in that time. During the time between July of 2011 and January of 2012, when I woke up to the reality that I had reached my highest weight ever, I was in a very stressful job. And one of the ways I managed my stress was ice cream. It got to the point where I was eating a pint of ice cream about every 2 days. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's true. I was doing it, and I wasn't even thinking about the impact it was having on me. I was just enjoying my ice cream and how it, made me feel better when I was, depressed and stressed out. And what else can I say here? Sugary cereals, that wasn't one for me. The other thing in here that is not mentioned was alcohol, and I was, consuming a fair amount of alcohol on a daily basis between July, again, of 2011 and January of 2012. So this is, for the most part, what I was doing and how I went from about 172 pounds in July of 2011 to 211 pounds in January of 2012. Now let's check the next one down. So this is 150 to 300, and in the chart we're talking about insidious weight gain. And again, this is where they refer to the standard American diet, okay? This is what many Americans eat, and many Americans live here, and that's why many Americans are currently obese today. Not gigantic, but just, 30, 40 pounds overweight. That little number that for everybody that's, I'm not fat, but I'm not thin, and I wish I was thinner. This is how you do it, right? 150 to 300 grams of carbs a day. So again, people are eating, we're eating white rice, pasta, bagels, bread, um, crackers, juice, sport drinks. Again, flavored lattes shows up again. Fries, chips, popcorn. If you're a snacker, and you're a savory type of a snacker, this is where you live. Large servings of rice, beans, and tortillas. Not to say you shouldn't enjoy Mexican food or Spanish food, but big servings of rice, beans, and tortillas. If you've been to a Chipotle lately, and you've had a burrito, they're gigantic, and it's filled with rice and beans in a tortilla. So eat one of those 2 or 3 days a week, and there you go. It's easy to get 150 to 300 grams of carbs in a day. Then we get down to pancakes, muffins, and processed foods. And again, I would tend to eat some of these things during breakfast and whatnot, and some of the other things here. And so this is, again, what more of a standard American diet looks like. And if you're on the standard American diet, which most Americans are, you're probably between 150 and 300 grams of carbs a day. And you're probably about between 20 and 50 pounds overweight. Again, you're not gigantic, but you are bigger than you should be, and it is causing health issues probably for you, especially as you get older. So let's look at the next one down. The next one down is between 100 and 150 grams of carbs a day. And this is a spot where you can maintain effortless weight maintenance. And this is balanced carb intake for active individuals. So if you're active, if you're working out daily, whether it's running or lifting, strength training, or cardio, the more you move, the more carbs you can eat. Carbs are energy, and carbs are quick energy. So if you are a 7-day-a-week exercise person or movement person, you have a lot more luxury with carbs than somebody who's more sedentary. Most Americans aren't exercising as much as their recommendations are, and as such, we're closer to sedentary than active, and with a higher carb diet, that leads to disaster, obesity, diabetes, and things like that. So here's what it looks like, though, when you're in this 100 to 150 zone. About 1 to 2 servings of whole fruit. Fruit is good. Again, it is a carb, but it's a natural carb, different from like processed food carbs. Sweet potatoes, squash, and beets are the type of starches that are in this effortless maintenance zone, if you will. Brown rice, oats, different things like that. Legumes, whole milk or full fat dairy, Ezekiel bread, and more flexible options with starchy vegetables. But really, for the 100 to 150, I think the key is limit refined sugar and processed carbs. So I've been in maintenance for 12 years now, and this is really where I live, pretty close to 100 to 150, actually between 50 and 150. I still am very carb conscious, and I still try to mentally keep my carbs closer to 50 grams a day than to 100 or 150. But I do really strive to limit refined sugar and processed carbs. And I find that by just managing those two things right there, it's much easier for me to stay between 100 and 150 and get down under 100 grams of carbs a day, which makes it really very easy for me to manage my weight and keep it the way it is, as I have done for the last 13 years. Now moving on to the weight loss. If you really want to lose weight, you want to get down to the 50 to 100 grams a day. And this is what's called the weight loss sweet spot. And we're not talking about ketosis here. We're just talking about a low carb diet, okay? I think a low carb diet, at least for me, is the approach that I'll have for the rest of my life. I don't need carbs. I, like carbs, but I just eat far fewer carbs than I've ever eaten before, and I'm healthier. I have more energy. So many things are going right. But basically, what we're talking about is anything that's related to keto, which I'll show you on the next slide. Berries. I do eat, some blueberries every week. Sweet potatoes, small, carrots, vegetables, and things like that. Dark chocolate cacao is actually a superfood for me. Cottage cheese, plain yogurt, and then low carb protein bars and shakes. But when you get to this level here, what you really want to do is avoid breads, pastas, pastries, sweet drinks, and things like that. And again, for me, when I started losing weight, back in 2012, I went all the way down to the 50 to 0 category, and I did give up for a pretty good period of time bread, pastas, starches like potatoes, rice, and things like that. And it was when I did that that I really started to see the weight come off, and more importantly, that the fat came off as well. So this 50 to 100 gram a day of carbs is really, it's a weight loss sweet spot, and it's not hard to get there. And the other thing I did back when I was doing this program, if you will, more closely watching it, if you will, I was tracking my calories. So I used an app and I tracked everything I ate. So I could see what my macronutrients were on a daily basis. And I was really noticing, curiously, that upwards of 75% of my calories were coming from fat. And on another, 20 were coming from protein, and hardly any of my calories were coming from carbs. I was losing weight, I was losing fat, I had mental clarity. I felt some of the best I've felt in my entire life. And so, really, a good place for me to be. Now, that brings us to the lowest level here, which is basically getting into ketosis. And ketosis is where your body, because you're not feeding it carbs, turns on itself and starts using fat for energy. And again, as I told you at the top of this video, when I discovered that for the first time, I was just amazed by that thought and idea. And I thought, why didn't somebody tell me this, like when I was in high school health class, that you could, literally have less fat on your body by just simply not giving your body carbs. You can see a list of common foods that you can eat when you're going into ketosis, if you will. Meats, eggs, fatty fish, non-starchy vegetables, spinach, kale, broccoli. These are all really healthy for you for a million different reasons. Avocados are incredible, super high in fat, but the best fat you can eat. Olive oil, coconut oil, and butter. I was doing bulletproof coffee every morning, which was 2 tablespoons of grass-fed butter and a tablespoon of coconut oil. That's 300 calories of saturated fat. I started my day with that, and it gave me an incredible amount of energy, and it knocked my appetite out of the park until 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Cheese, full fat yogurt. I see people buying the store, and the store shelves are full of fat-free yogurt, which is the dumbest thing you could ever eat. Fat-free yogurt, not a good idea. Nuts, seeds, almonds, walnuts, chia seeds. I, even to this day, and probably for the rest of my life, eat at least 1 serving of nuts and seeds every day, and I measure it out. So I know people that also eat nuts and seeds in a day, but instead of measuring it, and I use this little quarter out, this is a quarter cup measuring cup, but some people simply use a handful, and then 1 handful leads to 2 handfuls leads to 3, and all of a sudden you're eating nuts and seeds, which are super healthy and a great way to, lose weight and part of a keto program or just a low carb program. But because you're eating 4 or 5 handfuls in a day, they're still gaining weight, and they don't understand why. And then black coffee. I drink black coffee. I've always drank black coffee. I've never put cream or sugar in my coffee. I just like black coffee. Lucky for me. And if you're really, really, really trying to get into ketosis, the recommendation is, omit grains and fruits and legumes. Now, that is a way to actually get into ketosis for sure. At the place I'm at today, where I'm in maintenance, I do enjoy a lot. I do eat fruits every day. I try to eat 1 or 2 pieces of fruit every day. I'm very comfortable with beans and legumes and things like that. And I do eat, 1 slice of like 21 grain bread every day with like walnut butter or almond butter. So you don't have to do these things all the time for the rest of your life. But if you really want to have a big drop in weight in a reasonably short period of time, my experience was when I really focused on less than 50 grams of carbs a day, that's when the weight really came off fast. And that's when I was feeling some of the best that I felt and losing fat. Again, I didn't stay in keto forever, but I did stay in keto for roughly 5 years. And not because I needed to be in it that long to lose weight or keep it off, but because I felt so good. But I also understood that now fruits are more important, and I know that. So now my diet is more balanced. It includes more things like some grains and seeds and fruits, and I feel amazing. But I'm always again trying to keep my carbs, I would say between 50 and 150, and it's gotten to be very easy to do. I'm on autopilot now, I would tell you, because I've been doing this so long. I just, when I reach for food, if it's not the right food, I instantly know that I'm not reaching for that food because of what it will do to me. So this is a little bit about the different levels of grams of carbs per day and what food groups and what behaviors are associated with them. So basically, this is where I live today: effortless weight maintenance and weight loss sweet spot. And I bounce back and forth. I mean, I weigh 165 plus or minus 5, I say. If I take my eye off the ball, I can gain up. Sometimes I get on the scale and I'm 169, maybe even 170, which for me, it's not where I want to be. And so I will literally just start to throttle back my carbs closer to 50. And within a few days, I'm back on track. So this is kind of where I live today. And as a result of this program and what I learned and what I do, this is what I look like now. And, compared to the guy that I showed you a minute ago, this is a much healthier version of me. I get more done. I sleep better. I'm more clear minded. I feel good about myself, and life is good. And really, it is on effortless weight maintenance. It's not hard for me to remain here. And this is what I hope for all of you, that you can lose those 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds that you're carrying around. Again, you're not gigantic, but you're overweight and it's not healthy. But I believe, with this type of an approach, with just being carb conscious, you'll be able to lose that weight in a reasonable amount of time and then effortlessly keep it off and then get on your business of doing other things that you enjoy in life. So here's 5 takeaways from this Primal Blueprint carbohydrate curve. Number one, stay on the sweet spot between 50 and 100 grams of carbs a day. Again, this will keep you in steady weight loss and basically maintaining the weight you want. Again, you can focus on veggies, modest fruit, and low starch foods. Number two, avoid the danger zone. Over 150 grams of carbs a day, you will start to gain weight. Unless you're super active, you will start to gain weight. And the less active you are, the more weight you will gain at 150 grams of carbs and more. So it is linked to weight gain, cravings, and insulin spikes, and it's common in processed foods and sugary drinks. If you're eating a lot of processed foods, and God help you if you're drinking sugar pop, like a Coke or a Mountain Dew or something like that. I mean, forget about that. That's just not going to help you, obviously. Number three, you can fill up on non-starchy veggies, low carbs, high in nutrients. They help you stay full and satisfied. Number four, match carbs to your activity. As I mentioned earlier, if you're active, if you're walking every day or you're strength training 2 or 3 days a week and doing cardio, 100 to 150 is, probably going to be okay for you. You can still lose weight in that zone if you're really, burning a lot of calories. But if you're like most people and you're more sedentary than not, you really need to stay closer to 50 to 100. And, between 50 and 0 is a great place to be if you're at that place where you just woke up to the reality that you're way overweight and you need to lose a bunch. And now the fifth one is aim for sustainability, not extremes. You don't need a zero carb diet to succeed. Too low of carbs is not really healthy over the long term. Again, it was a great approach for me for, right away out of the gate. It helped me lose the weight fast. For 5 years, I stayed at ketosis or very close to it at about 50 grams of carbs a day. And, as a result now, again, I still really am carb conscious, but I would say that I'm probably in that, 50 to 100 zone, and it's become very easy. And, what you really ultimately want to do is find balance levels that work long term. And I think that's really, for me, what I've done. 13 years later, I'm, at my 165. I feel great, and I don't have to think about it too much. It's just become automatic for me. And once it becomes automatic, your life changes. I mean, when you don't have to worry about your weight and your health, you can start focusing on other things in life which are much more enjoyable than, spending your time worried about losing weight. So there you have it. I used this program that I just shared with you from going from 211 pounds, my highest weight ever in January of 2012, all the way down to 165 pounds, which I weigh today, and I've weighed this weight for about the last 12, 13 years. So this is my hope for you, that you can go from, where you are today to where you want to be. And I really believe if you follow this carb curve and pay attention to your carbs, you'll be able to achieve this goal, look your best, feel your best, and really have the life that you want and you deserve. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.